Sri Vasudevanand Saraswati, Chapter 3. His Childhood. Those were the times when modern civilization had not touched the shores of India. Life was simple, uncomplicated, quiet and serene like the flow of a river coursing through her bed to her destination. Vasudeva's education, which was traditional in conformity with the times he was born in, consisted of 3 hours: the elementary grammar of Sanskrit, to be gradually followed by more difficult studies in other sciences in Sanskrit, such as Panini's grammar, Yoga Shastra, etc. But unlike other children, Vasudeva was a miracle to his teacher, who found him to be a pupil of extraordinary memory and power of retention. Vasudeva had the good luck and the privilege of being tutored by his own grandfather, Hari Bhatt, at home, apart from his hours of study under his teacher outdoors. Hari Bhatt's piety and scholarship had influenced Vasudeva immensely in building up his character and personality. What wonder that the Lord had chosen such persons like Hari Bhatt and Ganesh Bhatt to be his guide and parent. Ramabai, Vasudev's mother, was a source of that devotional makeup in his character, which was going to be the bedrock of his devotional path, the Bhakti Marg, by which he had gone and led others to go for securing the final freedom from this dark prison house of senses called life. His father's scholarship and asceticism, coupled with his mother's devotional disposition to the ultimate mystery of supreme reality, went a long way in shaping and molding the future of Vasudeva. Everything, it seemed, was going according to the plan chalked out by the Lord himself for his divine rule in the form of Vasudevanand Saraswati of future years. Upanayana, or the traditional investiture of the sacred thread, had been supposed to be the symbol of the Brahmanacharya, or the studenthood according to our ancient traditions. Vasudeva was initiated into that life of studenthood. He was an ideal brahmacharyan, not one in the worldly sense, but in a truly spiritual sense as well. Brahmacharya means life in God ultimately. It is not merely an outward stage of unmarried life, but it is an inner state calling for self restraint in all acts of life. In this sense, even a married man can be a true brahmacharyan. Vasudeva was one who had fulfilled the conditions of this state of brahmacharya. While he was thus progressing through his initial stage of life, Hari Bhatt, who was more of a spiritual guide to him than a worldly grandfather, passed away. Ganesh Bhatt, his father, was in Ganagapur near his Lord Dattatreya and would not think of return. All the mundane affairs of home were left to be managed by his uncles, who were all more or less typically worldly minded and skillfully maneuvered to seek their own ends in the death of Hari Bhatt and the retiring mood of Ganesh Bhatt, his father. But Vasudeva was not perturbed at all by these calamities. He took it all philosophically with the faith in his destiny and God, who was his maker, perhaps in God, to say more correctly, who was himself. Young Vasudeva sat at the feet of his worldly teacher, like Krishna at the feet of Sandipani or Rama near Vasishta, and studied the Vedas and scriptures. Like Rama and Krishna, he served his teacher with humility and faith, strictly following the traditional discipline laid down to be observed by the pupil towards his master. This life of piety and discipline had borne to him the intellectual brilliance and spiritual luster. Vasudeva was being equipped with that subtle brilliance of intellect, which is the result of inner restraint and spiritual effort only. It was feared that Vasudeva was surpassing even his teacher in this respect. An interesting event, which was a forerunner of his divine mystic faculties to be revealed in future, is worth our narration here. His teacher, Shambhu Shastri, was a reputed astrologer. Once a client came to him as usual with a request to ascertain for him a proper muhurtam, an auspicious day and moment for the ceremonial and religious inauguration of his house, that is for Vastu Puja. Shambhu Shastri calculated the positions astrologically and fixed him a day and the specific hour. Now, Vasudev also, who was present when the client had come, had done the calculations in his mind and arrived at a shocking discovery that the day and the time picked up by his master was not only inauspicious but even was overshadowed by malfactory stars against the purpose. He revealed his opinion to his teacher and openly argued with him to the surprise of the client. Shambhu Shastri, instead of appreciating the accuracy of his pupil and taking the defeat generously, he was very angry with Vasudev and immediately suggested that no further interest would be served by his tutorship to Vasudev, and so they parted. The incident is an indication of the pupil's honesty of purpose and vanity of the common worldly learning. The whole town knew of this incident and their parting. Yet the people were very respectful to Vasudev as before, for he had won their hearts by his courtesy, his humility, simplicity, and truthfulness in conduct and attitude towards them. He was a friend to all, with malice towards none. Even in the absence of Haribhat, Vasudev had thus become the main staff to his family and an asset to the local community. Jai Thembe Swami.